Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
To the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and we have no game to talk about this weekend. I mean, we could talk about the Pro Bowl. Should we talk about the Pro Bowl? Should we do a little fun segment about the Pro Bowl? Maybe we'll make that for the fourth segment then, because I guess that is the only game going on. Maybe we could talk about the Pro Bowl festivities. I don't know. We'll figure it out for the fourth segment. But either way, for the show, Earl Thomas might be holding out because he is on the last year of his deal. He wants a contract extension. I'll be talking about that. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. Talk a little bit about it. Talk about Gronk not being cleared yet, what it means, what it doesn't mean, why it probably doesn't matter. All right, so we'll be doing that. We'll be talking about the Buffalo Bills. Eric Wood being forced to retire because of a neck injury that the doctors found in his end of the year physical. We'll be talking about that. And I think, let's see, is there anything else going on in the world of sports right now? Maybe we could do my end of the season awards. We could pick my MVP, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, all that good stuff. Maybe we could do that. I don't know. We'll figure that out for the fourth segment. But I know for a fact we'll be talking Patriots Eagles a bit, talking about Rob Gronkowski for this first segment. Then we'll go to Earl Thomas, the Seahawks. We'll talk a bit about the NFC West too, since the Seahawks got to worry about them. And then for Buffalo, like I said, the same thing we're doing with Earl Thomas. We'll talk about their problems on the offensive side of the ball, since they're losing Eric Wood, because that's just another added problem to them right now. They're going to be without a quarterback unless they go with the Nathan Peterman experience. Still got LaShawn McCoy, but I mean, you really don't have any receivers. Yeah, I'm saying that even knowing that Kelvin Benjamin's there. So we'll be doing that, talking a bit about the AFC East too. And like I said, for that fourth segment, we'll be talking maybe Pro Bowl, maybe my end of the season awards. Who knows? Fourth segment is usually up for grabs, usually whatever comes to mind. So let's get into it right now. Let's talk Patriots Eagles. Let's talk Rob Gronkowski first. All right, so Rob Gronkowski still isn't cleared from his concussion. I think who hit him? Was it Barry Church? Yeah, I think Barry Church hit him. He must have hit him hard if Rob Gronkowski's still out with a concussion right now. Still hasn't gotten past concussion protocol. And then we got the good old update. If there was a game on Sunday, which there isn't again, but if there was a game on Sunday, Gronk wouldn't be playing. So you know what that means? It doesn't mean anything because Gronk still has another week to get healthy. Or to get, I don't know, how do you get healthy off of from a concussion, or do you just not have concussion symptoms anymore? I guess that means getting healthy, but nonetheless, Gronk's got another week to get past this concussion protocol. So let's say, I mean, personally, I think that Gronk is going to end up playing in this in the Super Bowl. All right, I think he's going to end up getting past it. I think the Patriots are just taking it slow right now. But either way, what if Gronk doesn't play? All right, what happens to the Patriots if Gronk doesn't play? Is the game over for them? Are the Eagles Super Bowl champs already? All right. No, that's not the case. Gronk doesn't play. It changes nothing for the Patriots. Nothing. All right. Because you know what? They still got that quarterback. I think his name is what? Tom Brady? Yeah, he's pretty good. All right. Gronk doesn't really line up on the not right next to the tackle anymore as a tight end. He's usually in the slot or on the outside. What the Patriots do when Gronk is out, they put Danny Amendola in that spot. What Danny Amendola does when Gronk is out, he catches a bunch of footballs and he racks up a bunch of yards. All right, there's way too many other factors that go into this game or into this Patriots offensive game plan for them just to be done with Gronk not playing if he doesn't play. Like again, I think he is going to play, but I'm going to talk about it as if he isn't right now. All right, so this is all hypotheticals. All right, because you know what? From ESPN, Fox Sports, all those little news media outlets, you're going to get, oh, well, Patriots, are they done? Do they have a shot without Rob Gronkowski? We all know the answer to it, right? We all know that they do. But of course, ESPN needs the views. They got to have something to talk about. Just like me with this podcast. I got to figure out something every day to talk about. Well, I guess 3 days a week since we do this show Monday, Tuesday, Friday. So I got to figure something to talk about 3 days a week. And it's kind of difficult, you know. I mean, with this just being Super Bowl up. And then, it was just with the Super Bowl coming up. And then next week we got the Pro Bowl. That's why I did a fantasy football show, believe it or not. And I did know that there was daily fantasy for the Pro Bowl. I didn't know that, but sure enough, there is. I picked my team. Go ahead and listen to that podcast. It was pretty fun, actually. We talked about Pat Shermer, Todd Haley, like how we did for here on Tuesday, though. So we're going to check that out. But yeah, talking about Rob Gronkowski, I mean, I'm not worried about Gronk not playing Sunday. I think he'll be out there, and I think the Patriots will be just fine. Obviously not this Sunday. When I say Sunday, I mean the next Sunday. But yeah, like I said, I think Patriots will be fine with or without him. So, let's talk a little bit about the game going forward. Let's see. Should we talk some matchups, or should we just get it all out there? Let's go matchups right now, all right? Let's go Patriots offensive line versus that Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. So, the Eagles, at least what the stats say, what Pro Football Focus says, what all those guys say, because everyone says a lot of stuff. All right. The Eagles have the best defensive line in football. They get to the quarterback the best. All right. And they stop the run the best. Okay. As we know, Tom Brady's been around in the league for 18 years, 17 years. Man, it's crazy. The guy's 40 years old, but nonetheless, he's been around for that long. Tom Brady struggles when you get to him, when you put pressure on him. All right. Against Jacksonville got to him 3 times, I think, but I think the fourth quarter, Brady managed to stay pretty clean, and that's where the Patriots made their comeback right there. All right, that fourth quarter. The Eagles, in order for them to have a chance to win this game, I mean, it's like this isn't like, before I even get into all this too, like, picking the Super Bowl isn't like picking a regular season game. It's not like picking the wild card game. It's not like picking the AFC divisional round game. And it's not like picking the AFC championship game. So, like, it's pretty, like, it's like, you got to be careful when you're talking about this. Because, like, the Super Bowl, it's pretty much, it's like a pick 'em game almost. All right? Because remember that one Super Bowl where we had the Denver Broncos facing off with the Seahawks? Everyone thought it'd be a great game, but, I mean, Seattle just blew them out the water. But going back to the point, like I said, I mean, everything I'm telling you now, I mean, all of this could happen, but it might not even make a difference just because it's the Super Bowl. Anything could happen in this game. So like I said, though, Philly, in order for them to have the best chance to win, I think they got to put pressure on Brady throughout the game. It can't just be for 3 quarters or for a first half like Jacksonville did. You got to do it in the fourth quarter. You got to frustrate him, all right? You got to make him uncomfortable. Brady doesn't really have the best footwork as far as getting outside the pocket and moving out and trying to get the ball down to his receivers, all right? He's not the best at doing that. Probably the best quarterback of all time, arguably. If you remember on Monday's podcast, I said that Manning and Marino were better than him, but it's not like I was saying, oh, yeah, they're by far better than Tom Brady, because that's not the case at all. All right, I still, like, Tom Brady is literally like over 300-yard, 3-touchdown, 2-touchdown game, and a Super Bowl win from being the greatest quarterback of all time for me. All right, I've been holding off on it, but, I got to give him his respect eventually. So, either way, I mean, even if they lose the Super Bowl, because I don't really take into account winning championships as how good of a player you are, because that's a team stat right there. All right, but nonetheless, I mean, Tom Brady, the dude's going to be 40, and it's just ridiculous how he's gotten better as he's aged. The dude's like fine wine. All right, it's the first time I've ever used that reference, I think, too. So, yeah, Tom Brady's like fine wine. As he ages, he gets better. All right, he wants to play till he's 45. I think he'll probably last till he's 43, but nonetheless, it's Tom Brady. He don't care what I say, and he's got that Alex Guerrero guy to go out, and I don't know what they're doing over there, but somehow it's working. But nonetheless, like I said, you put pressure on Brady, he's going to struggle. All right, but they got to do that throughout the game. Another thing I want to talk about is, let's see, what else is there? Should we go? This is tough. Nick Foles versus the Patriot defense. All right. So if you remember listening to last Friday's podcast, I was picking the games as I always do every Friday. Obviously, I can't do this today. Maybe I'm going to pick the Pro Bowl game in the fourth segment. But nonetheless, like I said, couldn't pick the games today because obviously the game's next week. We got to save that for next Friday's podcast. But last Friday's podcast, I was picking the game between the Vikings and Eagles. I picked the Vikings because I figured that they'd be able to take away the underneath routes against Nick Foles, and they'd force him to throw deep. Obviously, they struggled to take the underneath stuff away from him, but Nick Foles showed me that he could throw deep. All right, before that Vikings game, I believe it was only one. He only had one completion over 20 yards before that game. Didn't think he could do it, but he showed that he could. Nick Foles probably had his best game as an Eagle this season. Okay, so now I'm curious to see if he could replicate that against the Patriots defense. I'm curious to see what Bill Belichick draws up against Nick Foles in order to try and stop him. Okay, because obviously Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Blake Bortles. All right, Bill Belichick against the Jags tried stacking the box against Fournette and forcing Blake Bortles to beat him. I'm not sure you can really do that against a team like the Eagles. Okay, you can try and stack the box against J.J. LeGarrette Blount, but Nick Foles shown he's more than capable of making big time throws and pretty much being accurate. I can't tell you off the top of my head what Nick Foles' completion percentage is so far in the playoffs, but I'm sure it's got to be pretty good because I think against the Saints, or no, not against the Saints, excuse me, against the Falcons, he completed 23 out of his 30 passes, and then so that was about. I'm not good with percentages, so I'm not even going to try to guess it, but let me see if I could check his completions in the NFC Championship game. I was drawing a blank right there. So 26 to 33. So he's in 2 games. He's only had 14 incompletions. That's pretty good, according to me. All right, I'm not a genius or anything. I'm no NFL scout, but that's pretty good. So as far as Bill Belichick stacking the box against J.J. and LeGarrette Blount, I'm not sure you want to do that because Nick Foles has shown that he could throw the ball and he could throw it well. All right, this game is very interesting to me. Okay, because Nick Foles, Nick Foles is basically me with Case Keenum for most of the season. Didn't trust him at all, Case Keenum. Didn't really start trusting Case Keenum until the divisional round game where he beat the Saints. And even then, he didn't play great. And then against in the NFC Championship against the Eagles, he played terribly. Case Keenum threw 2 picks in that game, but nonetheless, you understand what I'm getting at, right? All right, so yeah, like I said, Nick Foles, ever since he became a starting quarterback when Wentz went down, I said right there and then, the next podcast, the day after, I believe it was, Eagles are done. They're not going to the Super Bowl. Their season's over. Divisional round exit right there. I was completely wrong. I'll admit that. Nick Foles has made me quiet. He's kind of made me a believer. All right, so like Nick Foles against this Patriots defense, it's going to be interesting to see how Zach Ertz is able to get open against those linebackers, and I think Nick Ertz is going to do well, okay, because against this Vikings defense, and Vikings had, I guess hindsight is 2020 or whatever, so now I'm not really sure what we think of the Vikings defense, but before their game against the Eagles where they gave up 38, they were one of the best defenses in the league. You can argue that they were probably the second best defense or possibly even the first best defense, but that argument for number 1 defense in the league is a little tough. But either way, against Zach Ertz, they gave up 8 receptions, 93 yards, no touchdowns to him, but nonetheless, the guy had a big game. 8 catches on 8 targets right there. All right, and you know what? As I'm looking at the stats right now, I didn't really realize it, but this Minnesota defense struggled against the Eagles as far as forcing them to throw in completions. Zach Ertz had 8 targets, 8 catches in that one. Alshon Jeffrey had 5 targets, 5 catches. Torrey Smith had 8 targets, 5 catches. Nelson Aguilar, 4 targets, 3 catches. J.J., 3 targets, 3 catches. Trey Burton, 2 targets, 1 catch. And then Corey Clement had 1 target, 1 catch. So, Minnesota might need to fix up that secondary right there. But nonetheless, Zach Ertz against this Patriots defense, I think he's going to thrive. I think he's going to play well. Then you got Alshon Jeffrey, who has been lights out so far this season, had 5 receptions for 85 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Vikings. Got himself a nice little 4-year extension deal with the Eagles midseason. And, how's Malcolm Butler? I wonder who they're going to put on Alshon Jeffrey, or if they're just going to have each corner playing on one side of the field. All right, they might have Stephon Gilmore playing on the right side or left side. Either way, I can't remember how they do it. But nonetheless, you put a guy like Stephon Gilmore on Alshon Jeffrey, that's going to be a nice little matchup right there. Because like I said, Alshon Jeffrey is no scrub by any means. Alshon Jeffrey, I think we forgot a bit about Alshon, all right? And that might have to do with the fact that he had to play with Jay Cutler when Jay Cutler started going down. But before that, Alshon Jeffrey, remember, people were thinking, is he better than Brandon Marshall at one point where they were both in Chicago? So, Alshon Jeffrey is no pushover. He's a great receiver. So it's going to be interesting to see how Malcolm Butler, Stephon Gilmore do against Alshon Jeffrey. And then you got to worry about the guys like Torrey Smith, Nelson Aguilar, as far as what they're going to do. Those guys can get open. Like I said, Torrey Smith had 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown against the Vikings. And Nelson Aguilar produced against the Vikings also with 3 catches for 59 yards. You got to worry about Aguilar in the slot. You got to worry about Torrey Smith getting in an open space and finding open spots for Foles to throw it to him. So it's going to be interesting to see. That's really all I got to say about the game so far right now. I don't want to say too much about it since we got a whole week next week to talk about it. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Like I said, as far as Rob Gronkowski goes, still has not cleared concussion protocol, but I have no doubts that he'll be out there for the Super Bowl. And even if he's not, if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm not worrying about it. So, I mean, it doesn't really, it matters for Gronk to be out there, but the Patriots would be just fine. I mean, they could still win this game. They'd still be the favorite without Rob Gronkowski, I feel. So, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to be talking Earl Thomas, Seahawks, and a little bit of the NFC West. So, stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. That last segment we talked about Rob Gronkowski, how he hasn't cleared concussion protocol yet. But, I mean, I still think he's going to end up playing in the Super Bowl game. He's still got another week to go through it. But, I mean, I was talking about, too, how even if he, wasn't to play in that game, I still think the Patriots would be fine. I don't think that could be, a big factor as far as, obviously, I'm not trying to say that Rob Gronkowski doesn't mean much to that Patriots offense, but I think Tom Brady and Bill Belichick would figure out a way in order for them to still be successful to where it really doesn't affect them as far as winning and losing. All right, because, I mean, you could, they did it against Jacksonville. You throw Danny Amendola in a spot, and he's going to thrive. So, I mean, they still got that going for them. We also talked about how Bill Belichick might game plan for Nick Foles because you can't really stack the box against the guy because, I mean, the guy showed last week that he could throw deep and pretty much make those throws against Minnesota's defense. So, we're going to wait and see how it all ends up. Obviously, we got a whole other week to talk about the game. So, that's all I'm going to say about that. This segment, I said I was going to talk about Earl Thomas, but I'm also going to talk about Dez Bryant and his little situation going on with the Dallas Cowboys, whether or not they're going to bring him back or whether or not they're going to end up keeping him. Who knows? We'll talk about it. I'll give my thoughts on it, but let's start off with Earl Thomas. All right, so Earl Thomas at the Pro Bowl was asked by reporters, I mean, what's going on, with him and his contract. Earl Thomas says he wants an extension, and he said that he's not going to go out there unless he gets an extension, which means that's code for I'm going to hold out until these guys give me a new deal. So let's look at it, all right? Earl Thomas, can we say that he's one of the better safeties in the league when he's healthy? Definitely. Not even one of the better, one of the best, I mean. All right, one of the best safeties when he's healthy, right? Right. All right, so how often is he healthy, though? Every year? For the most part. For the most part, meaning he plays most of the season, I guess. 14 games, usually. Let me see if I can pull up how many games Earl Thomas has played in each season in his NFL career. Earl Thomas stats. I mean, as soon as you look at it, dude, it's like Earl Thomas injury. All right, let's see if I can pull. We got it right here. So this isn't showing me games played, you guys. Let's see. But either way, like I'm saying, Earl Thomas just really isn't on the field constantly year in, year out. Actually, yeah, last year he played 14 games, so he missed 3. 2016, you know what, it's been the last 2 years he hasn't been healthy, all right? I'm a little short-sighted right here as far as talking about Earl Thomas. So yeah, the last 2 years he hasn't been healthy. 2016, he only played 11 games. 2017, he only played 14 games. All right, so excuse me, I was a little wrong right there. But nonetheless, Earl Thomas the last couple of years has been a bit injury-prone, if we're being honest, all right? So, like they say, the best ability is availability, all right? And if I'm the Seahawks, I got to think bigger picture. Yeah, when he's out there, he's the best safety, one of the best safeties in the league, but I do have a hole at cornerback I'm going to need to fill. I might have another hole at safety that I might need to fill if Cam Chancellor doesn't come back from his injury. Because if you remember Pete Carroll talking about it, he said he's not sure if Cam Chancellor is ever going to come back. He said the same thing about Cliff Averill and his injury. So we got holes in the D-line. Linebacker, we're pretty set. Offensive side of the ball, our offensive line has been pretty garbage ever since we've had Russell Wilson. All right, running backs, they need running backs. I think they need a number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver too. Doug Baldwin's just fine. But, other than that, there's a lot of holes right there. So do you want to use that money in free agency to go out and fix those holes? Or do you want to use that money and give Earl Thomas a long-term extension where the last 2 years he shows you that he hasn't been able to stay completely healthy? All right? If I'm the Seahawks, I'm not sure. Obviously, you're pretty much betting on the fact that you think that Earl Thomas could stay healthy going forward in the future. All right? Like I said, me saying that Earl Thomas hasn't been able to stay healthy was a little overblown. It's only been the last 2 years, but those are the 2 most recent years we could go off of. Yeah, 2010 through 2015, he was healthy every single game. Well, not every single game, but he was healthy. All right? And you know what? Now I'm starting to tuck myself into giving Earl Thomas his contract. Okay, because we've seen Earl Thomas mention retirement a few times, but he also said it to reporters at the Pro Bowl that with the contract that Eric Berry got, kind of talked him out of it, and now he wants to get paid. And I get that, but I think that the Seahawks have a lot of holes to fill on that team to where I'm not sure if they're going to be able to give Earl Thomas a contract like that. He's played about 8 seasons so far in the league, and how many more do you think he could go? Do you think they're going to give him a 6-year deal? I think that's what what Eric Berry got. I got to double check exactly what Eric Berry got, but I'm almost positive he got 6 years, I think. Let me see if I can pick it up right here. All right, let's see if we got it. Earl Thomas, Eric Berry, I think it was on there too. Let's see. Eric Berry got 6 years. Last offseason, Eric Berry got 6 years, $78 million. Earl Thomas has already been in the league for 8. I don't see them giving Earl Thomas 6 years. And I'm not sure if Earl Thomas sees that either. If I'm the Seahawks, let's see, it was 6 years, $40 million guaranteed. So that's about, quick math, about $6 million, a little over $6 million a year guaranteed money. All right, I know people like to talk about the $78 million, but it's all incentives, so that's not all guaranteed. I like to go with the guaranteed. So if I'm the Seahawks, I'm probably going to give Earl Thomas around 4 years. Let's go $60 million guaranteed at about 50, actually 4 years, $50 million guaranteed. And then $24 million of that 4 years, $50 million total, $24 million guaranteed, for being off right there. But yeah, that's what I'd give Earl Thomas around. That's pretty much what Eric Berry's getting right there. All right, it's a little bit less, it's $6 million right there on the dot, so it's a little less than 6.5 or whatever Berry's getting for guaranteed salary. But nonetheless, how long do you think Earl Thomas is going to last if he's already starting to get hurt? All right. 4 years, I think, is enough. This is going to be Earl Thomas's last big contract right here. So I think it works out for both. He said he wants to finish his career, and he's already talked about retirement before. So, giving him 4 years is you know what? You don't have to pay much longer. Just play these 4 years. You'll get 24 guaranteed, and you have an opportunity to make that other $16 million in incentives. As far as incentives, interceptions, whether it being leading tackler or making playoffs and stuff like that. Because I'm almost positive that's how the incentives usually go in the NFL. So I think that's a solid deal right there for the Seahawks. You still got holes to fill, okay? You got to look at the teams too. You still got to compete with the Rams who won the division. All right, because you know what? The Seahawks took a step back this season. So you got to worry about the Rams who won the division. You got to worry about Jared Goff, who's going to be developing into his 3rd year, who's gotten better each year so far. Todd Gurley, who is in the MVP conversation. Tom Brady's probably going to end up winning it, but nonetheless, Todd Gurley is in the conversation. You got to worry about what the Rams do at wide receiver. Obviously, you got Robert Woods, who played well this season, but I'm sure they're going to be picking up another guy, so you got to worry about whoever that is. And as far as the defense goes on the Rams, they got one of the better defenses in the league, so the Rams are a pretty complete team right there in the NFC West. As far as the 49ers go, you got to worry about that Jimmy Garoppolo guy now. All right, Jimmy G's going to be getting a new contract, and he's going to be there for a while in San Francisco. You got to worry about pretty much how San Francisco rebuilds. They got tons of cap space, so they can bring in big name players. And as far as the Cardinals go, they're not a bad team by any means. They just need a quarterback. They brought in Mike McCoy as their offensive coordinator. I like that move a lot. He did well as far as coaching the Chargers and their little offense right there. I know they still struggle in other areas of the ball, but Mike McCoy is a solid offensive coordinator, so that's going to be good for the Cardinals right there. So Seattle's got to worry about whether or not they want to pay Earl Thomas, and they got to worry about fixing up that team to compete with the other 3 teams in that division. That might be the toughest division in football next year. We got to see how it all ends up. We got to see if Jimmy Garoppolo could, because obviously, like Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a bit of a weird case right here. All right, started in 8 games, won all 8 of them, but he hasn't played a full season yet. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to end up being one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but I got to see it still. I got to see it before, I got to see it happen, you know? So, I mean, Seattle's got to worry about all that. So, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Earl Thomas. If I'm them, like I said, I'm going to give him the contract that I talked about, but, I mean, who knows what they're going to do. So, let's talk about Dez Bryant a bit. Dez Bryant, as you know, a couple years ago, got that big contract. I think it was like, 8 years, something million, something like that. I got to double check the numbers. Don't know exactly. Can't remember exactly. Let me see if I could pull it up real quick. But nonetheless, Dez Bryant, ever since he got that contract, just hasn't been the same Dez Bryant that we came to know and love. Obviously, not everyone likes him, but, I mean, the guy at one point was one of the best receivers in the league, I feel you could say. I mean, the guy was in 2013 or 2012, I believe he had like 12 touchdowns. 2013, he had 14 touchdowns. In 2014, he had like 16 touchdowns, I think it was. All right, so let's see if I can find the contract numbers right here. Let's see. I don't have the total contract, but I know in 2018 he's set to make $12.5 million guaranteed, and with incentives it'd be $16.5 million. The Cowboys, if they were to release him, they could save $8 million, and if they designate him for a post-June 1st cut, they'd save $12 million, and he'd only count for $4 million against cap. I'm not even sure if that's the same thing, but either way, I'm just reading what I'm seeing. All right, so there's that. Stephen Jones on one of the Cowboys team podcasts went out and said that Dez Bryant hasn't really met expectations since he got his contract, and he's been a bit of a distraction with his sideline outbursts. Jason Garrett, as you know, has said that like Dez's sideline outbursts weren't a distraction, it's just the love of the game. You know, that little excuse right there. Jerry Jones was asked at the Senior Bowl if Dez Bryant, if they're going to be bringing him back, and Jerry Jones gave the whoever's under contract should be back next season. He didn't say, yeah, we expect Dez Bryant we're bringing back Dez Bryant. Yes, he's going to be our number 1 receiver. All right, so that's a bit odd right there that Jerry Jones didn't give like a vote of confidence really right there. And like I said, like Dez Bryant, with Tony Romo, the guy was unstoppable, okay? Was catching everything, bunch of big plays, and him and Tony Romo were basically doing whatever they wanted. Never really made playoffs or anything like that, but nonetheless, Dez Bryant was one of the best receivers in the league. Let me see. I got his stats right here, year to year. Let's see. Receiving stats from 2012, he had 12 touchdowns. 2013, 13 touchdowns. 2014, 16 touchdowns. 2012, over nearly 1,400 yards. 2013, over 1,200 yards. 2014, over 1,300 yards. 2015, he gets hurt. 2016, Dak's first year, he has 50 receptions for 796 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2017, Dak's second year, obviously, 69 receptions, 838 yards, 6 touchdowns. Obviously, those aren't big-time number 1 receiver numbers. And I think the biggest thing is that Dak Prescott isn't a quarterback like Tony Romo. Dak Prescott is a game manager at best. This season, he played like a poor man's Alex Smith. All right? He's not going to be a guy who's going to throw deep. He's going to look for Cole Beasley in the slot, or he's going to look for Jason Witten in one of those underneath routes or short routes, because, you know, it's the throw that Dak Prescott can make. Obviously, Dak Prescott is a better quarterback when Ezekiel Elliott's out there, but still, I don't think Dez Bryant really benefits from it. So, let's say that the Cowboys don't bring back Dez Bryant. Are they any worse? I'm not too sure. Dez Bryant really doesn't fit that offense too much. If they were to cut Dez Bryant, then I see them bringing back Bryce Butler and just inserting him in a Dez Bryant spot. Bryce Butler has talent, but he really didn't get too much of an opportunity because most of those balls were going towards Dez Bryant. You got to force feed the guy because he's getting paid all that money. That's just how the business works, you know? But if they bring back Dez Bryant, I mean, you pretty much, if Dez Bryant comes back and he's back for this next season, Dez Bryant has to pretty much adjust to the offense, okay? They're not going to switch it up for him. They're always going to switch it up for the quarterback. That's always how it's got to be. So, like I said, if he comes back and they end up bringing him back, Dez Bryant's got to figure out a way to fit into that new Dallas Cowboys offense in order for him to have better stats in order for him to make up for that big contract that he's getting. So, I mean, I'm not sure how it's all going to end up, but like I said, I mean, if the Cowboys don't bring him back and they end up re-signing Bryce Butler, Cowboys don't get any worse, I don't think. And as far as where Dez Bryant ends up, I mean, I'm not sure where would be a good fit, what would be a good fit for him either. Maybe a team like San Francisco, since they're going to need a number one receiver for Jimmy Garoppolo, but we're going to have to wait and see how it all ends up this offseason. But that's all I got to say about that. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills. Might see a few words about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So stay tuned, and we'll be back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Your favorite podcast, my favorite podcast, everyone's favorite podcast. That's just according to me. I don't have the stats to back that up, so don't sue me. But either way, so far in the show, we've talked about Super Bowl bit, talked about Rob Gronkowski, talked about what did we talk about last time? We talked about Earl Thomas, we talked about Dez Bryant. This segment, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills. And we're going to be talking maybe about a little bit about the Pittsburgh Steelers if we have time. If not, we might just move that to the next segment. But actually, I think we are going to talk about the Steelers for a little bit. We're going to talk about what Cam Hayward said, or Cameron Hayward said. I got to get that correct. So nonetheless, let's start off with talking about the Buffalo Bills, though. So a bit of sad news for them at Eric Wood's end of the year physical. Buffalo's starting tight end. He found out that he had a serious neck injury and that he can't play football anymore. All right, and I've never been a fan of the Buffalo Bills, but nonetheless, I mean, the guy's been there for so long, been pretty much just like a solid just a solid center for the Bills since 2009. All right, yeah, so we got drafted in 2009, and what is that? How many years is that? 2009, that's like what, 8 years, 10 years, pretty much, 9 years. Yeah, 8. I think it's 9 years if you're counting the year 2009. So yeah, he's been in the league since he's been in the league for 9 years. All right, like I said, I mean, that was pretty much a spot. The center position was never something to worry about for the Bills. And I mean, going forward, I mean, I'm sure they thought this offseason that they weren't gonna have to worry about it either. Because you know what, they have a whole bunch of other holes they got to fix on that offense. All right, I don't think they're going to be bringing back Tyrod Taylor, which is a shame, but nonetheless, I mean, they're just not going to bring him back, I don't think. All right, you got to fix the wide receiver position, and now you have to fix the center position. All right, plus your defense is getting older. I mean, the secondary is pretty young, but the defensive line and linebackers are starting to get a bit older. So, I mean, you still got a few years left in them as far as playing in their prime and playing well, but eventually you're going to have to start bringing in younger guys to take over. All right, so they got a bunch of holes they fixed, and as far as like this whole Eric Wood situation and him not ever being able to play again, I mean, it's just another unneeded hole for the Bills. Now you got to fill that up. I mean, as far as what they're going to do at quarterback, I mean, I'm not too sure. They can go a whole bunch of different ways. All right, I don't see them getting Sam Darnold. Don't see them getting Josh Rosen. Don't see them getting Baker Mayfield or Josh Allen. All right, there's too many teams ahead of them that need quarterbacks, okay? Let me see if I can name it off the top of my head right now. You got the Giants, the Browns, the Broncos, the Jets. All right, then in the mid-teens, you got the Cardinals, the Redskins, and then you can even throw the Dolphins in there because you know what? They come out and said to reporters that they're thinking about taking a quarterback in the first round. They're not sure if Ryan Tannehill is their guy going forward. And if you're looking for a quarterback in the first round, that pretty much shows that you know what? They don't think that he's really the guy going forward. So, nonetheless, I mean, that's what I just named. What, like 6-10 teams I think that need quarterbacks. Something like that around there. I can't remember exactly. I'm not good at math, but nonetheless, there's a lot of teams that before that number 21 and number 22 pick that need quarterbacks. I mean, I don't see Josh Allen falling. I don't see Mayfield falling into them. You're probably going to have your choice at like a Lamar Jackson, Luke Falk, I think his name is, from Washington State, or even Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State, but I think he's more of a second-round type quarterback, or he's a guy that could end up going to a team like the Saints in late first round. All right, I've talked about how I think that they could trade one of their first-rounders to the Kansas City Chiefs for Alex Smith. The Chiefs, I think, are ready to move towards Patrick Mahomes, but they need to find the suitor for Alex Smith. I think Alex Smith's contract is up in after this 2018 season, so you're going to have to give up something for him. Kansas City currently does not have a number one pick, so that's where one of Buffalo's number one picks right there, the 21 or 22nd pick, fits in for Alex Smith. All right, or you can go the route of a Sam Bradford type. All right, you can think he's a free agent. You can be like, you know what? Maybe he could stay healthy this season. He's not going to lose his games, but he's also not going to win his games. I mean, Sam Bradford is no different than Tyrod Taylor, if we're being honest here. Tyrod Taylor, nice completion percentage. Sam Bradford, nice completion percentage. Both don't really throw interceptions, but both aren't going to really be thrown for over 300 yards. I think the case of Tyrod Taylor not throwing for over 300 yards really this season and really having between about 250 to 100 yards a game, I mean, I think that had to do with the fact that you're throwing to guys like Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones. Those receivers that Buffalo drafted in the draft last season, I mean, they didn't really pan out too well. All right, Kelvin Benjamin, he's going to be a guy who builds himself a nice little NFL career, but he's not a number one receiver. All right, that's why you had guys like LaShawn McCoy and Charles Clay leading the Bills in receiving week in and week out. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I mean, as far as Tyrod Taylor goes, I mean, that's a story for a different day. I don't think the guy's going to be on an NFL team once week one comes. But either way, like I said, they got to fix the quarterback position. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing. I mean, maybe you could go for a guy like Case Keenum, but I think Case Keenum's either going to end up back in Minnesota or head over to New York, as in the Giants. Teddy Bridgewater, if Case Keenum ends up in Minnesota, then, I mean, the Bills, that'd be a good fit for Bridgewater right there. But Bridgewater isn't a guy who's gonna be able to. He's not a guy who's gonna be able to. Lead a team to wins. He's gonna need solid players around him. All right, so I mean, you got to think about that. And I mean, what other quarterbacks are out there? I mean, Kirk Cousins, but I don't see Cousins going to Buffalo. So, I mean, as far as the quarterback position goes, I really have no idea what they're going to be doing. I mean, they might even think, you know what, let's just go with the Peterman kid and throw him out there. I hope they don't do that. They do that, Buffalo's not winning too many games next season, all right? And as far as the draft goes, I mean, like I said, now you got to look for a center, and you're going to, like, first round, I think they need to go wide receiver. All right, you can't go into the year with Kelvin Benjamin as your number one receiver. Number two, that's fine, but number one, I mean, I'm not liking it. All right, so there's that. I mean, as far as the tight end position goes, like I said, Charles Clay's getting older, but you got Nick O'Leary who's looking like he's going to take over after. All right, so let's see. What else do they need to fix up? You got to fix up the defensive line a little bit. Kyle Williams is retiring, so you're going to need a new starting defensive tackle, and you're going to need to draft some younger guys to take over for the older guys there. So eventually, I mean, I think Buffalo might be in a bit of trouble next season if we're being real here, all right? Because then you got to worry about the Jets next season, who were 5-11. At one point, I think they were 5-7. Josh McCown gets hurt; he's out for the season, and that's where the Jets pretty much lose out for the rest of the season, starting Bryce Petty. Did Christian Hackenberg play at all last season? I can't remember, but either way, those aren't NFL starting quarterbacks right there. So, I mean, you put a guy like Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield on the Jets, I mean, the Jets get better, I feel. Josh Allen, I'm kind of on the fence about. I'm not sure what kind of quarterback he's going to be. I think right now he's more of a project, but I mean, in Senior Bowl practices, he's been showing that he's been playing well. So you got to worry about that. And as far as it all, like I said, the Jets, I mean, they got a solid young defense who's been developing. Last season, they were played extremely well. Jets defense, like I said, they didn't play extremely well. Might be a little bit of a hyperbole, but they did play well. Like I said, they're young, and they don't try to do too much. That's one of the things I like about that defense. They don't try and overpower you or anything like that. They fill their gaps, and they do their jobs. They don't try and go above and beyond and try and be the star or the hero or anything like that. That's what you need in a defense. And you got Robbie Anderson. I know he did have his arrest, and I'm not sure what's going to end up from that. He might get suspended. He's probably going to get suspended at least 4 games at the start of the season this upcoming season. So you're going to have to worry about that. You're probably going to need another receiver. Austin Seferian-Jenkins was a nice little solid tight end option for them this season. You're probably going to need a running back too, unless they think that Bilal Powell can take the next step, which I don't think he can. So, I mean, the Jets still got quite a bit to do on offense, but, I mean, they're just one great quarterback away from being a solid team in that division. As far as Miami goes, like I said, they're thinking about taking a quarterback in the first round. That's what the front office has said to reporters. All right, Ryan Tannehill is going to be back. Adam Gase has came out and said that Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starting quarterback for the 2018 season. They got to see if Kenyon Drake could put up the performances that he did from the middle of the season towards the end for a full 16-game season in 2018. You got to see what they're going to do with Jarvis Landry, whether or not they're going to extend him. I think they should. I know it's going to cost them quite a bit, but you got Demaryius Thomas and T.Y. Hilton who are making $14 million. I think you got to give Jarvis Landry that because that's what the market dictates. All right, that's just how the game goes. And as far as their defense goes, Xavier Howard developed pretty well last season. Cordrea Tankersley showed that he could play well, and he showed flashes of what he could be. You had Tony Lippett, who tore his ACL, but was a nice little option for them the year before. Rashad Jones, TJ McDonald's a nice little safety pairing. Defensive line struggled a bit, so they're probably going to need to address that in the draft. And as far as that 11th pick goes, if I'm Miami and you're thinking, you know what, Ryan Tannehill's going to be our starting quarterback for 2018, pick up Roquan Smith out of Georgia for the linebacker, or Tremaine Edwards, the Virginia Tech linebacker. I think those are one of the guys that they need to go for. If they do that, then the defense is going to be looking pretty solid. But nonetheless, Miami's not going to do much if they don't extend Landry. You can hear my thoughts on that, I think, on Monday's podcast, or it was last Friday's podcast. I know I talked about it, but nonetheless, they got to do that. And I'm not even going to bring up the Patriots. You want to know why? Because they're going to win the division as long as Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are out there. So, each of these teams are going to be playing for wild cards until Brady retires. So, there's really nothing to talk about, nothing to say about the Patriots as far as the offseason goes. So, the Bills right now, they're in a bit of a tough spot. So, we got to see what they can do as far as this offseason goes. Now, let's talk a little bit about Cam Hayward and what he said for what he wants in 2018 for the Steelers. He said he wants to see less drama. All right, in 2018. Yeah, I agree. All right, Mike Mitchell, if you remember, said that they were going to be playing the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. They were going to see them. Le'Veon Bell tweeted out before the Jaguars game, I love round 2. We got a round 2 going against Jacksonville. We're going to have a round 2 going against the Patriots the week after. This team overlooked the Jacksonville Jaguars big time. I have no clue why. Everyone overlooked the Jaguars in that game. People were saying, it's stunning that the Jags are beat the Steelers. No, it wasn't. If you were paying attention, it wasn't stunning at all. All right. But as far as the Steelers go, they do have a bit of cockiness that goes with them, and I get that. Okay, you do have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Hall of Famer for sure, the best running back in the league, Hall of Famer for sure, and then the best player in the NFL at wide receiver, in Antonio Brown. You could debate me on it, but chances are, I might be right. Yeah, you could say, Tom Brady is, but that's lazy right there. I think Antonio Brown, as far as being an NFL athlete and all the stats that he brings in, he's got to be the best player in the NFL. All right, so, the Steelers this upcoming season, they pretty much got to take away the bulletin board material. Stop calling people out, stop being so cocky, and just go out there and play your game. Fix up that defense, and I think this team is going to be competing for either the AFC Championship. We did have a podcast on Monday, me and Tate, in the fourth segment. We talked about whether or not Mike Tomlin should be in the hot seat or should be fired. I said he probably should be a little hot. The guy's only won one Super Bowl in his time, and he's only been to 2 AFC Championship games. With the team that he's got, he should be going to the AFC Championship more than twice. At least 3 or 4 times, and should have been in at least a second Super Bowl. Doesn't need to win another Super Bowl, but should at least be playing for another one at least. All right, so we got to see about that. But yeah, I agree with Cam Hayward that they need to take away the distractions and just stick to football as far as it all goes. And now they got to worry about extending Le'Veon Bell, which I think they will. But nonetheless, it's still something that's in the back of your mind, because if they don't bring back Le'Veon Bell, there's no one in the league that can do what he does. Todd Gurley comes close, but he doesn't do it as well as Bell does. So it's either you franchise Bell and he probably sits out or retires, or you extend him, or you just don't franchise him or extend him at all and you just let him walk, which I highly doubt they'll do. But there's always the small possibility of it. So that's all I got to say about that. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Pro Bowl bit, give my thoughts on it, and pretty much talk about anything else going on in the world of football. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
the GSMC football podcast. All right, so far on the show, we've talked about, what have we talked about? We talked about the Eagles and Patriots a bit, talked about Rob Gronkowski not being out of the concussion protocol yet. I don't think it's going to be really a big factor. I think he'll be able to play in the Super Bowl, but we're going to have to wait and see how that all ends up. Talked about Earl Thomas and Dez Bryant in the second segment. Third segment, we talked about the Buffalo Bills. Talked about Eric Wood having his career ended, and then we talked a bit about the Steelers. This segment, I think we're going to talk about the Pro Bowl bit. I learned some things from Pat Shurmur's introductory press conference with the Giants, and I think I'm going to give my season awards. All right. So let's talk a bit about the Giants. All right, on Tuesday, obviously we talked about Pat Shurmur becoming the it wasn't official yet, but I talked about Pat Shurmur was going to be the Giants' new head coach. Talked about what they could do at quarterback. Talked about what I thought they'd do. And from the press conference, it looks like Eli Manning is going to most likely be, and he's in line to be the starting quarterback Week 1 of 2018. So obviously my little pipe dream of Case Keenum going over there and Saquon Barkley getting drafted with the number 2 pick is not going to happen. All right. So with Eli being, we're looking to be the with it looking like Eli Manning is going to be the starting quarterback. What do you do with that number 2 pick? Do you go with Josh Rosen, or do you go with Saquon Barkley, or do you draft an offensive lineman? I'm honestly, like, from what I'm reading about it, from this press conference, like the quotes I'm seeing, I'm not sure that they take Josh Rosen with that number 2 pick. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, Dave Gettleman, like I'm reading the article right here, and it says that Eli Manning told Gettleman that he'd be okay if they drafted a quarterback at number 2. So, I mean, I guess that opens the door for it right there. But, I mean, just imagine, like, Eli Manning, Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Marshall, Evan Ingram. Imagine that offense. Doesn't that sound pretty nice? Doesn't that sound like a team who could compete with the Eagles, possibly, if they fix that defense? And like I said, they got James Betcher, the former defensive coordinator out of Arizona, so I think he's going to fix up that defense pretty nice. So, I mean, doesn't that sound good, though? Doesn't that sound like the Giants could get back to the playoffs? I mean, there's going to be a lot of good divisions in the NFL next season. I think the play in the league next season, they get a whole lot better because, like I said, I mean, you're going to have Dallas next season, who's going to have Ezekiel Elliott back for the entire season. I guess, yeah, I know this year he had to serve that 6-game suspension, so that kind of hurt them. Then you got Pat Shurmur going to the Giants, becoming the head coach there, and Eli Manning's going to be the starter. I think they're going to have a pretty good team still, so it's going to be a nice little team that can compete. Philly is the team to beat in that division next year. Washington, they're going to be terrible. As for the NFC North, I mean, you got Chicago, who's going to be getting better. I like the head coaching and offensive coordinator hires that they made there. Detroit, I think they're going to be bringing in Matt Patricia. I think that might work out pretty well. Green Bay, anytime you got Aaron Rodgers out there, you got a chance to win a Super Bowl. Minnesota, it's going to be interesting to see what they do at quarterback, but I still think they'll be a good team. Then you got the NFC South. If the Saints bring back Drew Brees, then you still got 3 solid teams right there. NFC West is going to be really good. You got the Seahawks, who I think are going to bounce back a bit. The Rams, Cardinals are a quarterback away from competing for a wild card spot. And you got the San Francisco 49ers. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays as well as he did in those 6 games he did this season, I mean, that could be a team who competes well. Also, I mean, the NFC is going to be stacked. I mean, there's really only 2 truly bad teams, I think, and like Tampa Bay is one of those teams, but I'm not even sure, like, they could bounce back also. So I mean, like, the worst, like, I don't know, I know it's all early, so I mean, this really doesn't matter what I'm saying right now, but I can as far as predictions right now, I mean, I think the NFC is going to be extremely good next season. As far as the AFC goes, I think the Bills are going to get worse. I'm not sure what Miami is. The Jets are not sure what they're going to be. Depends on what quarterback they get. AFC North, Baltimore could take a step back. Cincinnati's been pretty bad in the last couple of years. Cleveland, they're the Cleveland Browns. I'm not sure what they're going to end up doing. Pittsburgh's still going to win that division. AFC South, Houston's going to be a good team when Deshaun Watson comes back. As far as the Colts go, they go as far as Andrew Luck takes them, and so far Andrew Luck hasn't taken him anywhere since he's been hurt. Jacksonville is going to be one of the teams to beat in the AFC next season. Tennessee, they're that's not really exciting. As far as the AFC West goes, Denver needs a quarterback. Not sure any of the ones that they draft are going to work out. So I think they need to go towards Kirk Cousins. Kansas City, I'm thinking they're going to get rid of Alex Smith, trade him. So Patrick Mahomes is going to be the guy. Are we sure that he's going to be a solid quarterback in the league next year? Los Angeles, I think they're my early favorite to win that division next season. And then the Oakland Raiders got to figure out what's going on that defense. So the AFC is going to be pretty weak next year, I think. But we got a whole off season, free agency and draft to go. So we'll see how it all ends up. But who did I start? Oh, yeah, I started talking about the Giants. Went off topic for a bit, but nonetheless, it looks like Eli Manning is going to be the starting quarterback. I like it. I think Eli Manning, as they'll say and continue to say it, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if they draft Josh Rosen, I think they'll be pretty set up nicely for the future. All right, let's talk Pro Bowl for a bit. So the Pro Bowl, like any All-Star game, really, I'm not too fond of. I mean, I'd be totally fine if they got rid of the Pro Bowl and just gave the guys their bonuses and all that. But I mean, I guess it's fun for families that go there and all that. But I mean, the Pro Bowl just really hasn't, like the Pro Bowl's never been good, I don't think, ever. Maybe in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, it was a better game. But I mean, I can't remember exactly. But I honestly haven't watched the Pro Bowl in the last few years. It's just not something that's entertaining to me. Usually there's a basketball on or something like that, and I'll turn it into there. But I think this year I might change it a bit, see what the Pro Bowl's all about, see if it's gotten any better. But nonetheless, I mean, let's see. Can we make a pick for the Pro Bowl this season? Obviously, it's pretty much the Pro Bowl. You got to look at it. Who's got the team with who's got the less star players on their team? I think the NFC might actually end up winning it. Let me see. Let me go through the rosters real quick right here for the AFC. You got Phillip Rivers, Big Ben, Derek Carr, Le'Veon Bell, Kareem Hunt, LaShawn McCoy, Antonio Brown, Jarvis Landry, Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton. And you got Delaney Walker. I'm not going to talk about the offensive line because, I mean, it doesn't really matter. On defense doesn't really matter either. I mean, you got A.J. Boye, Jalen Ramsey, Aqib Talib, Casey Hayward. I mean, pretty solid defense right there, actually. And then on NFC's offense, you got Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas, Larry Fitzgerald, Devontae Adams. And then you got Jason Witten, Kyle Rudolph. And they don't do the draft anymore, right? I mean, like I said, I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in a few years, but I'm almost positive they're not doing the draft this season. But nonetheless, obviously, it looks like the AFC has these star players, and obviously the team with the most star players I don't think is going to try the hardest because you can't get hurt. I'm going to go with the NFC winning it. That's how it's going to end up for me. So I'm going to go with the NFC. Obviously, me picking it means nothing because this game is pretty much whoever's out there and plays well, I guess. But nonetheless, I guess I'll go with the NFC as my pick since it's a Friday show and usually we make our picks on Fridays. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the season awards. Who's going to win what award? So for MVP, I guess, I mean, this MVP is won by default here, all right? It's going to go to Tom Brady. It was probably going to be Carson Wentz, but he blew out his knee. Russell Wilson had a chance, but he didn't make playoffs, and Todd Gurley's a running back, so I doubt they're going to give it to him. Also could have been Antonio Brown, possibly, but he tore his calf muscle, I think in week 15 it was. So Tom Brady gets the MVP award by default. All right, he did lead the league in passing yards, did have 32 touchdowns, but I mean, just Carson Wentz was going to win that award just because of how the pace he was playing at and just how well he was playing at, all right? But nonetheless, I mean, Tom Brady does deserve it. I mean, as of right now, he did have a great year, so I mean, we'll give it to Tom Brady. Offensive Player of the Year, that's definitely without a doubt Todd Gurley. Guy had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, 19 total touchdowns. Was pretty much not St. Louis. It's Los Angeles' entire offense. Jared Goff did play well, but I mean they wouldn't have been played as well as they did without Todd Gurley. All right, so I got Todd Gurley as Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year. This one's pretty easy. Calais Campbell. He had 14.5 sacks. All right. Made first-team All-Pro as an edge rusher, second-team All-Pro as an interior lineman. That's crazy. All right, Calais Campbell had a monster year. Guy was a beast, so he's my defensive player of the year. Offensive rookie of the year, it could have been Kareem Hunt, but I think Andy Reid took him out of the running there. Kareem Hunt did have a 4 or 3 game stretch where he really wasn't playing well, and I think that had to do more with the fact that Andy Reid was limiting him as far as carrying the ball. I mean, I still haven't gotten over the fact that Travis Kelce goes down in the wild card game, and I mean, you assume, you give the ball to your second best player on offense. You give it you do that. You put it in his hands. So instead of giving the ball to Kareem Hunt, I mean, he only had him run the ball in that game 11 times. It was ridiculous. Andy Reid, for some reason, gets in his own way every year, and it frustrates me big time. So I got Alvin Kamara as my offensive rookie of the year. I mean, the guy was a beast. All right, no one really, I don't know if anyone, I know people probably thought that he was going to be a good player. I don't think anyone expected him to do as well as he did this season. The dude was a dual threat back, could catch the ball at the backfield and could run in between the tackles and outside the tackles too. So yeah, Kareem Hunt, offensive rookie of the year. Defensive rookie of the year, Marshawn Lattimore. All right, arguably a top 5 cornerback already for this in the league. Saints did well in this draft. I mean, as far as picking their players up, they're going to end up with the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year, I feel. So yeah, Marshawn Lattimore played extremely well. All right, and he was pretty much a lockdown cornerback. Like, he'd be locking down guys like Julio Jones, like all the top receivers, and that's pretty tough for a rookie to do, especially. So I'm going with Marshawn Lattimore as my defensive rookie of the year. Coach of the year, this one's pretty. This one's I think it's an easy pick, but there's a couple other coaches that deserved it. I'm gonna go with Sean McVay. All right, Rams last year, one of the worst teams in the league. Shout out Jeff Fisher, it was your fault. But Sean McVay comes in. They go from having the worst offense in the league to the best offense. They win their division, and I mean, they won a bunch of games and won them well. I mean, remember they blew out the Seahawks at home, like, what was it, like 40-7 or 40-7 or something like that. So yeah, Sean McVay definitely coach of the year. But I mean, Doug Peterson and Mike Zimmer could have a shot at winning it. They both did well with their team. So yeah, he's my coach of the year. As far as most improved player of the year, I'm gonna go Jared Goff. All right. If you remember last season, it wasn't right, but people were starting to throw around the bus label with Jared Goff because the guy just didn't look good at all. Again, that might be Jeff Fisher's fault, but nonetheless, here he is this year and plays extremely well. So most improved player would be Jared Goff, I feel. So that's how I think it's going to go as my MVP, my offensive player of the year, and all these other words. That's how I think it's going to end up. Those are my predictions. Those are actually who I'd pick also. So nonetheless, that's the end of today's show. Thanks for listening. Like I said, first up, we started off talking about the Philly and New England Super Bowl game. Talked about a couple of matchups. Talked about Gronk. Second segment, we talked Dez Bryant, Earl Thomas. Third, we talked Buffalo Bills and Pittsburgh Steelers. And then for this one, we said a few things about the Giants and Pat Shurmur and Eli Manning starting. Talked a bit about the Pro Bowl, and I made my predictions for the season awards. So that's going to wrap it up for the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.